Thanks so much for inviting me. I wanted to first open up by saying that I'm a very, very happy customer. Obviously wrote the book about customer satisfaction and viral anger, but my experience here has been amazing. First, a public thanks to my Nestle team, many of whom I met for the first time, who have just inspired me about what's happening in this marketplace. I spent a whole day talking to them about just the remarkable things happening in this market. And I'm going to go back to Switzerland and to global Nestle with a lot of ideas on how to really continue to build digital. And also to AdTech for just another amazing conference. I've been going to these conferences since, I think, 1997. And AdTech's played a really key role in shaping my digital perspective. So delighted to be here. Here's what I want to cover today. A couple key themes. Number one, the boring basics still really matter. Everyone in this room is a digital leader. We're looking to grow digital, convince our management. But I want to argue to you that getting there requires an embrace of what I sometimes like to refer to as the boring basics. Secondly, kind of true to the speech title, small is the new big. And it's not just about small. It's about what comes with a world of small, kind of thinking a lot about, kind of my call to action in this speech is shrink, serve, and simplify. Really thinking about a world where it's less about advertising than serving consumers, especially in a small screen world. And then also, just I'll cover a lot of stuff, and I'm sure some of you will want to have the conversations. We may not have a chance to talk. I just wanted to put my email address up front. Delighted to engage with you afterwards. I'm also on Twitter, like many of you. So, let's really try to keep this conversation alive long after this speech. A little bit about Nestle. Every day I learn about a new brand that Nestle has. It's a huge company, an amazing company, but we sell 1.2 billion products a day across a host of categories. Some of the brands, the global brands that you're familiar with, Nescafe, Kit Kat, Gerber, which is primarily in the U.S., but going global, Purina, Maggi, Nestea, Nespresso, Perrier, Jenny Craig. We're starting to move into the whole nutrition, health, and wellness space. That's actually a key strategic priority for us. In terms of India, here's a few, how shall I say, tweetable tweets. This year we're celebrating our 100th year anniversary, so we've actually been in this market for a very, very long time and proud of it. Our first product was Milkmaid, which I know many of you are familiar with. We sell the equivalent of 2.4 billion cups of Nescafe a year, just a little. We sell more packs of Maggi noodles annually than the entire population of India. So we're deep in the country. We're very, very proud to be here, and we expect to be here for a long time. And just from my trip yesterday with a couple of my colleagues, about my role, we're all kind of testing the limits of digital structure. And the one thing we all know is that digital is softening silos. And generally, that's a good thing because it's opening up companies in powerful ways, helping us become much more entrepreneurial. Like, I actually have joint reporting both to marketing communications and to corporate communications. So the CMO is my boss, but also the head of corporate communications. And I think that's indicative of what we're seeing in both small and large company structures where those of us that lead in digital or social media are unifying a lot of pieces of the enterprise. And it's really important for all of us, whether we're on the agency side or the client side, to think about those synergies, those convergences, and how they become opportunities. So, for example, clearly in my case, you've got a convergence of corporate and consumer communication. But you've also got other dynamics. You've got a very important convergence taking place between marketing and research. In fact, you could argue that in a world of social media, asking consumers a question, which has always been part of the research process, is one of the most important marketing activities. Makes consumers feel valued, more important. In fact, some of our most successful digital initiatives, social media initiatives on Facebook or Twitter and the like, involve asking consumers a lot of questions. So you see a big convergence there. We're also seeing a big convergence of product quality and sales. There's so much transparency in the marketplace that we have to think differently about the performance of our products and the degree to which that really kind of impacts trade perceptions and the like. Same thing with supply chain in digital. Again, the transparency principle is changing the game of how we, of the accountability that companies have and the degree to which consumers can look behind the brand, and we're doing a lot of work in this particular area as well. So a lot of convergence taking place in digital. And part of what I want to leave you with is not just what is Nestle doing, but also some leadership tips, because we're all trying to sometimes push that rock up the hill. But we need to think about how our organizations are changing and how we can turn that into opportunities. Now let me kind of hit my first big theme. The basics still really matter, especially in digital and social. And one of the biggest mistakes we make in digital, and I've had many spins at the wheel in this area, is we'll treat it as isolated. It'll be this, it'll come from left field. It'll be sitting on an island. It might be a short-term stimulus, but it's not sustainable. And I think the big mistake that we make is we don't anchor it to fundamentals. In fact, John was hitting this in his excellent speech yesterday about, do some of these fundamentals about word of mouth. They kind of endure both offline and online. At Nestle, we have, I'd like to say a few words about our brand building process. And all of this kind of predates digital. We have something known as brand building the Nestle way, and it's a disciplined approach to building world-class brands. And our digital strategy and our brand building the Nestle way strategy hangs together in a very, very, in a very, very tight way. So if brand building the Nestle way is all about excellence in brand building, digital and social media, which I lead, is about kind of three closely related pillars: listening, engaging, and inspiring. And I'll say more about that in a moment. Now, when we talk about brand building the Nestle way, what we've done is we've created this brand building house. And again, this is like a core requirement. This is like marketing 101 for everybody who works at Nestle, no matter where they are. And our brand building house includes a number of key rooms. And some of this may seem really intuitive, but it's a very, very important exercise that we go through. And again, all of this can be looked at as pre-digital. And yet you can also look at it and say, my gosh, this is the ultimate vitamin for digital. So for example, create engaging brand experiences. That's been a truism of branding for as long as branding's been around, but it's especially important in the digital world. And in fact, most of what we're doing, whether it's with online communities or interactive ads, really gets to the heart of engaging brand experiences. Win with shoppers. I think that's one of the most important developments of the last 12 months. But we've always known that that's important. And we've built a whole a room full of best practices and winning actions. Delight with product experience. Think about apps. Know your consumer deeply. The web is opening up a whole new world of understanding consumers. Innovate, bolder, bigger, bolder, better. But again, these are the Nestle fundamentals. But for those of us that are digital leaders, we know when we look at this, we see opportunity. Because we see opportunities for digital to enhance every single room, whether it's the Nestle brand building framework or other companies. So just for example, so for each room we have a host of winning actions. So here's some of them in our red room. This is the one that's probably most related to digital. Creating engaging brand experiences. Let me dial up one of these. So for example, one of the winning actions is search out and identify big ideas that are contact point neutral and inspire engaging, sustainable communication. It almost sounds like it was written for the digital age, But this was always a foundation of the way we've built brands. Engage consumers with communications when and where they're most receptive to brand messaging. And then here's the one that really counts. Create attractive and rewarding brand experiences for your consumers beyond consumption and shopping. Attract and reward. What we're seeing today is a shift from reach and frequency to attract and reward. It's a whole new standard for thinking about how we win with consumers, and this is very, very baked into brand building the Nestle way. Now, on the context of digital and social media, we're building our practice around three key building blocks: listening, engaging, and inspiring. Listening is the measurement side. This is analyzing the conversation. This is really knowing your database of intention vis-a-vis search queries, both at the brand and the category level. But it's this notion that before you spend $1 or franc or rupee in the digital, you really have a handle on the listening side. And that will inform the best possible decision. Then there's engagement. And probably the area that we're putting the most attention on is brand advocacy. And that's an important choice when brands say that propensity to recommend is the most important KPI. That's raising the game. It's not enough to get traffic. It's definitely not enough to get clicks. In fact, we had a lot of questions raised yesterday about clicks. But propensity to recommend. What's going to make that consumer fan me, follow me, link to me, embrace me in their conversation? That's really key. So nurturing brand advocacy, consumer conversations, content, apps, and services. And then inspiring really gets into the enterprise value. This is where you think less about digital as a marketing channel than as an operating principle. How do we fundamentally change the organization? Social by design. You hear a lot of that from Facebook. Breakthrough insights and innovation, 24/7, sense and respond. These are the wonderful dividends that the marketing side of digital is providing to the enterprise side, and it almost is creating a much bigger ROI around digital that we need to frame and package for those in our enterprise. Now, the other thing that's important, we've heard about it from a number of the speakers, but one of my other big missions is to drive media efficiency. I'm a fervent believer, I have been for many, many years, that digital is presenting the opportunity for us to drive untold efficiency. But we need to be smart about how we combine the pieces. When I first started digital 15 years ago, we loved to pit TV versus digital. It was almost like this Sandlot kids battle. I can't believe they're getting the money. And it still persists to some degree. But it's a tired debate. The bigger piece is how everything complements one another. Social is a vitamin for TV. TV is a vitamin for social. It's an amplifier for social, and the like. And we need to think about how all these pieces hang together, whether it's the online components or the offline. And we need to think critically about the interdependencies. Search engine optimization, for example, lives in the owned and the earned. So does breakthrough content development in a world of co-creation, where half of the content we produce, but the consumers often close the deal, if you will. They kind of bring it together. They kind of provide more meaning around it. And we need to think about how all of these pieces help one another. And I'm convinced that if we can do that, we will drive much greater media efficiency and potentially create better campaigns. And I'll give you a few examples. So a few kind of winning actions in Nestle, in action, kind of a few digital flavors of Nestle. We've got brands like Gerber that are doing, I think, a remarkable job at attracting, rewarding through service. Here's a brand that call centers are always open, feedback lines are open, diagnostic services. But again, kind of, it's a different way of thinking about branding. Then you've got brands like Friskies that are kind of coming at it a little bit indirectly. Let's create an app for cats. But in the process, they're involving the pet owners as well. You could say this is almost a process of co-creation, in the process creating a lot of buzz, as many of you probably saw with recent Mashable tweets and the like. Even one of our markets is testing TV commercials for dogs that kind of uniquely appeal to the dogs, and of course that drives a lot of online conversation. This is a bit of an experiment, so I don't have the perfect results. But again, kind of thinking about how the offline asset synergizes with the owned and the earned media. Again, we can't think in silos anymore. In fact, we're probably doing a disservice to our brands by looking at any particular variable, even digital, in isolation. And I'm a big believer in what Jean said yesterday about, TV is not going away. It might actually get stronger. And I know from my Nielsen experience before I came to Nestle that TV consumption is actually, in some respects, even going up. But it's coming at us in different ways through different vehicles in different contexts. Nestle Germany launched a service called Marketplatz, delight with product experience. It's actually one of our first direct-to-consumer e-commerce, where you can actually order from any number of the family of Nestle products. You can bundle them together. You can rate the products. There's an online community. This just launched a couple months ago. Nestle Spain, creating engaging brand experiences through Nestle TV. They're actually doing a great job of using the power of sight, sound, and motion, video, across a number of different categories to reach and bond with consumers. And it's something that we're very, very happy with. Again, I do believe that video is a huge idea and largely underdeveloped. Switzerland, we just launched just a couple weeks ago a direct-to-consumer kind of customization where you can actually fill out almost like a Myers-Briggs of chocolate, where we'll put you in different chocolate classifications, and then we'll customize premium chocolate with customized gift wrap directly to you. And we're testing this in Switzerland right now, but we're kind of pushing around this area of mass customization in certain premium segments. In France, let's roll this video, and then I'll talk a little bit about it. But here's a good example of where you've got strong convergence of paid, owned, and earned. So, that's one of my favorites. So TV quality production, but seated online, had some TV airtime, ridiculous number of views on YouTube, nice bleed over into Facebook, and again, a really good convergence. So again, a lot of the things that we've believed in the past, the power of sight, sound, and motion, the power of storytelling, the power of humor, still really applies. If anything, we may get more credit for it in a digital and social world. So we can't lose sight of the core fundamentals. And again, that's a campaign, like everything at Nestle, that emanates from a strong kind of an ownable big idea for the brand. Now let's let's go local for a moment. Should we go local? Okay. So one of my favorite initiatives globally, and I say this even before I came to India, is what Nescafe has done. I think it's one of our best examples of kind of paid, owned, earned integration. But rather than explain all this to you, we've got a relatively short video that kind of explains the campaign and the setup, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the social media synergy, okay? And some of you, certainly hope, are familiar with this, okay? So let's run the video reel. But we were getting my favorite part. All right. Thanks for your patience.
Switch on the best in you. So, a game of badminton. Or a game of coffee. Game of coffee. He's got $1 million smile right from the first time I saw her. I remember on the 48th commercial she did many years ago. And her smile exploded onto the Indian film screen. She's got a beautiful, beautiful smile. Well, Deepika, best of luck to you and all your lovely neighbors, and I hope you're smiling for all of them, including myself. And good luck for Break Your Bar. Looking forward to that film. It seems funny and romantic, and I like that kind of cinema. So, best of luck for your film, and keep smiling, everybody, like I said before. Switch on. Well, so that was poor. I had thoughts on you being neighborly love. There was some neighborly love coming on you. Your love that neighbor, isn't it?
Yes, sir, I've just done an ad with him for for Nestle, and I think he's extremely talented and very, very sweet, very charming, very down to earth.
You don't mind having a neighbor, right?
Why not?
I'm not having a neighbor in that one.
Get a chance to be Deepika's neighbor for a day and find out what happens next. Call 09041 90041.
But there's more. Okay, back to the slides. I want to say a few more words about the part that really captured my imagination. And I actually discovered this before I came to appreciate all the foundational parts of the campaign, is that I look at Nestle's data constantly, daily, sometimes by the minute. And there was something going on with the Nescafe India Facebook page. I just had never seen such dramatic numbers. Sometimes like adding like 100,000 new fans per week. And it turned out that it was revolving around this Know Your Neighbors campaign. And what I think is so powerful, and this is a great lesson for all of us as we think about the gold standard of media integration, is just how this ostensibly traditional campaign, grounded in kind of a TV narrative over time, print and the like, spilled over into the social space in a very deep and meaningful and still sustaining manner, where I think we're now up to 1.4 million fans. And the thing that I always pay a lot of attention to is not just fan count, but depth of engagement every time you post something. And the one thing I've noticed about this particular fan site is just the number of people that will comment every time the brand says something. And this whole art of engagement is critically important for us to understand. In fact, if we're going to get the full dividends from a great TV campaign, we have to really think about how the online elements complement both the paid side, because there is some paid advertising, but importantly on the community side. And you had, just for perspective, 25,000 people chatted live with Deepika, more than 2,000 questions. And this is big. Going back to my boring basics, winning action number 7 on Know Your Consumers Deeply is, understand what specific changes in your target consumer attitudes or behaviors are required to move from awareness and loyalty to become brand advocates. Again, boring fundamentals that find unique life in the digital and social environment, and actually have paid a really rich dividend for this particular campaign, which on the surface looks like a TV campaign, but I'm actually convinced the bigger idea is actually what's going on Facebook. Now again, going to the numbers that Pete Blackshaw looks at all the time, I kind of track some of our top brands on Facebook, and what was kind of interesting is that the Know Your Neighbor Nescafe India site is actually bigger than our global Nescafe page, and it just shows the power of a good narrative, the power of good stories. It also shows, it also reveals just how dynamic this market is in terms of social media. We tend to always focus on the mobile side, but I actually think there's other very, very important dimensions taking place here that I, for one, am very eager to continue learning about. Some of the key success factors, in my view, always tie everything to the big idea. Be very careful about putting digital in isolation. Amplify your big idea through the digital and social campaigns. Always on engagement. Think about the friends of fans. Think about what John said yesterday about the power of the network effect. Paid, owned, earned synergy. Fan recognition and promotion, which you see a lot, not just on the Nescafe, but a lot of you are doing this on your own brands. Celebrity involvement. Big idea, only unique to India? I'm not so sure, but I know that you're ahead of the pack in testing that. But again, paid, owned, earned. So stick to the basics. Point number 2, small is the new big. Our screens are shrinking. And this is going to create some huge challenges for us in marketing but also some big opportunities. Challenges because we love to crowd the consumer with a lot of stuff. And the internet has presented this opportunity for us to be this great information provider, but at the same time, screens are shrinking. So we're going to have to be a lot more choiceful. And we need to think harder about simplifying our messaging and serving the consumer, which is easier said than done. I wrote a column in Ad Age, and I said one of the biggest things we need to think about is, shrink, simplify, and serve. And I'll repeat it right here because I think we're just in the early stages of this journey where we're going to have to do precisely that to win with consumers. Now, just to kind of illustrate how this is playing out, the world of the small screen device, let's take a quick sneak peek into the future of shopping, and then we'll provide some other examples. This is a prototype video that I helped create that looks at everything you're going to see is what's happening today, maybe not at once, but it's happening in different ways with the consumer. Let's roll it. Much shorter than the other one. That's already happening. Lots of startups are doing that. Some of you in the room, I bet. Who's there? Who's in the store? How do I navigate around the store? How do I translate my shopping list immediately to an in-store purchase activity? Next generation display. Click to remind, click to save, click to future of feature and display. Growing role of ratings and reviews, big deal, big deal, especially in a small screen environment. Okay, we can wind that one down. Save a few seconds. Okay, you can wind it down. Thank you. So all of the interactions, that's not only a narrative about the future of shopping, but it's also the importance of small screens and providing service to the consumer to help them in their shopper journey. And all of those interfaces are small and simple and very, very, very intuitive. And we're going to need to think about how to do that. Now, at Nestle, we've been doing a lot of experimentation in this area. The learning is quite diverse across our markets. One of my favorite ones is from France, Nestle Dessert. This is where we've had, actually I think we're close to about 500,000 downloads. About 10% of iPhone users in France are actively using this. And why don't we just show the very, very short clip just to kind of illustrate this, and I'll do a quick walkover on this. But again, think about, as you're doing the apps, think beyond the PR flash to, how are you providing a meaningful benefit to consumers? So in this particular case, Nestle Dessert is very, very popular with, for making desserts at home. So it's not something you kind of eat right after you, it's kind of cooking chocolate. Dynamically finding shopping locations where the product is available. And then you can also customize your request. Again, we're seeing this in a lot of apps, but making it really, really simple is the challenge. And a lot of us are trying to figure out how do we translate our websites into small screens. Very, very complicated. Much more complicated than the vendors would have you believe. Here's where you can actually figure out the exact cooking time. Also think of the power of sight, sound, and motion in a world where you're carrying the device around. But what we've learned is that tools like this, if executed well, with good consumer understanding to boot, perform extremely well with consumers. And it's just the start of our journey to really kind of think about this world of shrink, serve, and simplify. That's good. Okay. Back to the slides. That's my last video. Okay. Okay. Thank you. A couple other examples, just real quickly. Our Japanese market is really on the bleeding edge on so many fronts. I think the mobile phone innovation there is potentially a proxy for where the world's going in terms of e-commerce transactions, but to also sophistication in providing meaningful service. In this particular case, highly sophisticated service, but very, very simple interface, voice activation. You know, our Maggie is kind of approaching this in a range of markets. And, you know, while noodles are really popular in India, there's other Maggie products in other countries that are, you know, really popular that merit everything from, you know, recipe instruction to voiceover and the like. But again, how do we really simplify the benefits? How do we think about the service layer that sits on top of our brands? We need to provide rich content, true service, and a real consumer shopper focus. Nestle Singapore is doing amazing work in partnership with the government around recycling, where you can literally you know, use your QR code reader or other means to basically find out exactly where the product should be recycled. Big success and something that we're looking to put a lot more attention into in terms of the way we think about areas like creating shared values, one of our core programs at Nestle. Let me say, let me kind of end my talk with a little bit more about the operating and the inspiring side. We've also been putting a lot of thinking around the inspiration and transformation side of the three pillars, which is, you know, how do we transform the organization? How do we inspire? How do we think 24/7? And one of the programs that we've initiated just in the last couple of months is something known as the Digital Acceleration Team, where we're actually kind of creating a bit of a startup environment within our global headquarters where we have some of our best digital talent from across the markets come in for very, very intensive training. And we were able to build in a relatively short period of time kind of this multimedia center plus training center. Here's what it looks like, where it's surrounded by screens that kind of represent listening or analytics. It could be ComScore or Nielsen data. It could be Nescafe cups sold per second. It could be online conversation by influencer, by topic, by pre-post campaign. But the idea is that how do you create a working environment that's very, very close to the data? And again, what's unique about digital is our ability to make real-time interventions where we can kind of tactically respond. And this applies both to issues management and to proactive marketing. We're also looking to really reinvent the way we think about video as an instructional tool. I think the same rules that apply to sight, sound, and motion in TV can also apply to the way we train. Again, we need to kind of put our shoes in, our consumer shoes on as we think about the best way of building up our digital IQ and evangelizing others. But our goal is to really rethink the model. And again, I'm saying this in part because I was debating, do I share this or not? But you know, to inspire you to really think beyond the click, to also the organizational models that we need to build to drive meaningful success, to think about the new ways of putting media together in a way that creates exponential value and actually decrease costs over time. And we think this is really important. The other thing that we're doing a lot is that I am, those of you who know me, I'm a diehard walk the talk believer. I think that if we're going to do digital, we're going to have to, we can't just preach it to our colleagues. We need to walk the talk. We need to do it ourselves. I learned a lot of my best digital skills doing my own blog over a 5-year period. And now I'm doing it within Nestle. In fact, Nestle has built one of the largest internal social networks among companies. We're just in the process of rolling it out. And my goal as a digital leader is to figure out how do we leverage that network to disseminate the good knowledge. So there's our team digital blog. Here's a typical personal blog that's a blog dedicated to me on an internal network. We can friend people, we can like content. It's not quite like Facebook, but a lot of those same sharing principles. But whether it's something like this or others, I mean, how do we begin to take the core operating principles of digital and social, which is fundamentally speed, sense, and respond, and apply that to the way we lead and build organizations? That's the ROI that we sometimes miss as we're getting into sometimes granular debates about the click. So let me kind of retweet a couple themes. The boring basics still really matter. If you're struggling to make that case, don't be afraid to look at the fundamentals. They might help you move a lot faster. They might help you build credibility. They might help you bridge to that skeptical middle manager that just for very good reasons just isn't there yet. So anchor to those fundamentals. Number two, small is the new big. This is going to take a lot of work. It's not going to be easy. Even I had too much stuff in my presentation. I couldn't totally walk the talk on everything. It's very, very hard to simplify, but we need to do it if we're to be successful with the consumers of today. Shrink, serve, and simplify. And then the last thing I wanted to say, and I say this sincerely, I've said it before, I think this is a great time to be in marketing. I think we're all very lucky to be working in organizations, whether on the client or the agency side, at a time of incredible change. It's a time when we have this opportunity to get really close to the consumer. And that's an opportunity for us to create tremendous value, inspire change in our organization, and we should treat all of these things that are going on as huge opportunities. And I think most organizations, whether they admit it overtly or not, they're ready. The question is, are you willing to step up and lead that? Thanks, and let's absolutely positively keep in touch.